Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, the UN's Humanitarian Office launches a global push for support of Sudanese civilians caught up in a brutal 10-month conflict. The generals behind the violence say that they're willing to discuss aid access, but the fighting's already killed tens of thousands and caused millions to flee their homes. And Nigeria edges out South Africa in the latest battle arena for the Anglophone rivals. The Super Eagles are through to the AFCON finals after a tense penalty shootout at the tournament in Ivory Coast. But first, Sudan's warring sides have agreed to meet in Switzerland for talks on how to allow in desperately needed aid 10 months after the outbreak of war that has devastated the country. The brutal power struggle between Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and the RSF paramilitary leader known as Hemeti has devastated Sudan. It sparked the displacement of at least 8 million, the destruction and collapse of health and education infrastructure, and tens of thousands of people are thought to have been killed. That includes between 10 and 15,000 in a single city in western Darfur. The overall toll could be far higher. The UN's called for $4.1 billion in international support to help civilians faced with what they're describing as epic suffering. For more on this, I'm joined now by Jens Lerche from the UN's Humanitarian Affairs Office. Jens, thanks so much for making the time to speak to me. So first of all, these 10 months of fighting have led to a bouquet of crises. What for you are the priorities in terms of strategizing a report, and also give us a sense of what the landscape looks like from your understanding?
Thank you very much. The landscape is catastrophic. Half of the population in Sudan needs humanitarian aid. And what is at stake for them? Massive displacement, hunger, lack of healthcare. Healthcare is a disaster. In the conflict-affected areas, there's hardly any at all. Children, vulnerable children, are succumbing to diseases that they should not succumb to. So the crisis on all aspects of humanitarian assistance is very, very large. So what we have done today is launching the humanitarian response plans. As you mentioned, these are very sophisticated, very detailed, very practical plans for what a very large number of humanitarian agencies actually can do in Sudan. But we need, of course, the funding for this to provide, to procure the aid that we need and to get to the places. And there is a second point there, access to the people who desperately need us.
So when it comes to access, we've heard al-Burhan and Hemeti say that they're willing to engage in this new round of talks to try and tackle the question of access. So what happens now, and what do you know about the conditions under which face-to-face talks might happen?
Indeed, phone calls have been made at a very high level between officials from the United Nations and the generals. They have given us an initial commitment that they are interested in getting together to speak about humanitarian access for that purpose alone. It's called a humanitarian forum. So that is the commitment that has been given to us. But it must be said, that is a while ago, and we haven't heard from them since. So we are waiting for them to come back and say, yes, we want to do good on these commitments. As you mentioned, Switzerland has certainly been mentioned as a place for these such talks to take place. But for us, it can be anywhere. The important thing is that we get this high-level leadership together, get an agreement to help with the access, and have that agreement trickle down their chains of command so that we on the ground can actually get out to people.
So we on the ground, who is on the ground? You know, since the beginning of the conflict, there's been a real problem in terms of getting any access, particularly into the hotspots of the fighting. So what has been happening in the interim in terms of providing humanitarian relief to the Sudanese civilians at the front line of this, of the fallout of the fighting?
That's an excellent question, because we saw already at the beginning of the conflict, the insecurity and the fighting was such that in many, many places, which is still the case today, international responders simply cannot reach. However, there's a lot of local organizations, local groups, self-organized groups, and they never left. They are there, they are working, they are helping in their communities, and we're in touch with them, we're in contact with them. And they're doing an absolutely amazing job. But they need this international assistance and this international help, and we can help facilitate that through our appeals, getting the donors on board. And if you don't mind, Georgia, when we have these local responders, and it's amazing what they do, and it's very, very courageous, who come to us patiently, modestly, and ask for some help, it does take a cold heart to say no.
So what are they asking for?
They are asking for access, again, so that we can reach them. They are asking for financial support so that they can procure what they need to procure. And they need our push and the international community's push to get to a political dialogue whereby we can stop this suffering at the root. Because humanitarian aid can only do so much. It's not a solution to the crisis. That is a political question. We can help in the interim so that people survive, people have food to eat, people have a shelter while this comes together. But the push for a political solution must be there as well at the same time.
Thank you so much, Jens Lerker from the UN Humanitarian Affairs Office. Thank you for giving us your time. Now, thousands of people from the eastern Congolese town of Sake have fled fatal bombings in which at least 96 people were killed. The bombardment on the community in North Kivu has sent the vast majority of people heading to the regional capital of Goma. Now, while some suspect that M23 militia battling the army west of Sake may be behind the explosion, it's still not clear who is responsible. However, deadly unrest has worsened in the area over the last few weeks. Our correspondent tells us more. We seem to have a bit of a technical problem whilst we try and resolve that. Moving on to some better news. Well, for some at least, it looks like, bear with us, it looks like we have actually technically caught up with the last story that we're hoping to bring to you, which is coverage of the fleeing communities in eastern DR Congo, currently under bombardment from militia groups. Our correspondent tells us more.
2 presumed artillery shells hit separate districts in the city of Goma on Wednesday, according to the Congolese army. This is the second time in less than a week that Goma has been touched directly by the conflict that is raging around the city. Fighting between the M23 rebels and Congolese forces has intensified recently. This situation on the battlefield was confirmed by Congolese army spokesman General Sylvain Ekenge at a press briefing this week. Ekenge described heavy exchanges of gunfire around the road that links the towns of Sake and Minova, which are both not far from Goma. Clashes are at the moment concentrated in the hills around Sake, which is about 20 kilometers from Goma. Although the situation on the ground is confused, the Congolese army says that it's under control.
The FARDC has to fight until the last drop of blood. It has to succeed. This is an existential question. We cannot allow ourselves to lower the flag. Otherwise, the Congo will no longer exist.
According to several security sources, the rebels have managed to cut off most of Goma's supply routes. For their part, the M23 stated that they have no intention of capturing the city. Amid artillery fire, a steady stream of men, women and children have been fleeing to Goma since this morning, carrying what small belongings they have on their back. These families will join more than 1 million people who have already fled the clashes in North Kivu, according to the United Nations.
And in some better news, Nigeria is through to the African Cup of Nations final after the Super Eagles scored the winning penalty in a gripping 4-2 shootout victory over South Africa. Their semi-final in Bouake had ended 1-1 after extra time. And as Nigeria, the 3-time champion, heads once more into the final fray this weekend, South Africa's Bafana has to put their dreams to bed. Well, our Eunice Masson was watching the match in a very noisy bar in Cape Town, and she sent us this account of the dramatic following of events.
Energy and excitement are in the air. Despite the fun of the funnest loss to Nigeria, the South Africans are proud of their win over Tunisia, Morocco and Cape Verde to bring them to the semi-finals for the first time since 2000s. Let's head over to the fans to hear what they have to say.
Terrible game. Nice try. We could play, but not enough. Terrible. Really disappointing. But at least we made it to the semi-finals. Not bad. I don't feel good, man. The referee was not fair of us, but it's fine. At least we got it to the semi-final. It's fine.
South Africa was like one of those goals that just gives you hope, and then they disappoint you. But I'm proud again of my country because we've been doing the most actually, like music, rugby, all that. I'm so proud of my country, nonetheless.
Very hurt. A lot of pain. I'm gonna wipe my tears with this tonight.
We're kind of feeling really sad. We didn't think we were gonna lose the match. It's very disheartening as South Africans. We're not used to losing. So yeah, like hey man, we're gonna take our L in peace, as we say as Gen Z. But yeah, it's a really sad moment for us. We're not used to
How many rugby World Cups does Nigeria?
At least we have the World Cup. That's all I'm gonna say.
Well, before we leave, we have some excitement from the winning side of that match. Nigerians are very much looking forward to their advancement in the tournament.
To me, today, I don't really know how I'm feeling, but it has been good throughout this tournament. I really appreciate the management and the coaches today. These guys have really guided me a lot throughout this tournament. But today, I feel so happy, and I really appreciate my teammates today.
Oh, clearly very emotional moment. Well, that's it for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us. Do so again if you can. Till then, take care.
Join us on Down to Earth, where we explore the incredibly complex relationship between humans and our planet. We meet the people behind fascinating environmental, health and technological innovations in a bid for sustainable solutions to our changing world. Down to Earth on France 24 and France24.com.